whisper would do. All you wanted knows.
Hello and welcome to our webinar, Do Research in Europe. My name is Dr. Juliane Sauer. I am the national contact point for the Marie Curie Actions in Switzerland. I will be joined later by Dr. Evgeny Redekop, who is a Marie Curie Fellow at the University of Ghent in Belgium. A quick overview on our webinar. After this short welcome, I will present you with the basic information on the so-called International Incoming Fellowship. I will talk about the 5 evaluation criteria, give you some additional tips and tricks. We'll briefly also talk about other funding opportunities for researchers and where you can find information material. And later on, the webinar will be completed by a testimonial of Evgeny Redekop, who has a Marie Curie Fellowship. We will send you the presentation afterwards. This webinar is also recorded and will later put it on YouTube. You will get all the information in a follow-up email. This webinar is brought to you by People Network Plus. This is a network of all the people national contact points, so of the experts on this type of fellowships. We are financed by the European Commission. We have 15 partners and more than 70 associated partners all around the world. This project lasts for 2 years. It is coordinated by APRE in Italy, and we focus on the integration of non-European countries in the People program of Europe's framework program for research. So this is why we talk about now to you on how researchers can get to Europe and work here. Let's have a look at the setup of this webinar. In the big window on the left-hand side, you will have always the slides. On the right-hand side, in the upper corner, you have a speaker photo, so that you at least get an idea of what we look like. And below it, we have a chat for your questions. You can type your questions during the webinar, and we will get back to you and answer them at the very end of this event. So, let's get to the basics. What is an International Incoming Fellowship, an IIF? These are one of the so-called Marie Curie Actions. These are fellowships financed by the European Commission, and this type of fellowship is specially designed to attract top-class researchers from the so-called third countries. With third countries, in this context, we mean not the EU member states, nor the associated countries in this context, such as Switzerland or Norway or Israel. Basically anywhere around the world, but not Europe. These are postdoctoral fellowships for up to 2 years. You would get an employment contract with a European host institution with this type of fellowship. And the goal? To develop research cooperation between Europe and other parts of the world. I do not know from which scientific area you are, but you do not need to worry. Any research topic can be funded with this type of fellowships. They have to have an interest of for the European Union. We will have a look later what that can mean. If you have a very new and interdisciplinary topic where you could not really even say which type of research that is, you do not have to worry. Anything can be funded here, and when you apply, you will assign your proposal to a certain overarching thematic sector so that the right evaluators can be found. For whom are these fellowships? Let's briefly have a look at the eligibility criteria. As I said, these are fellowships for researchers who are moving from a non-European country to the EU member states or a couple of associated states. If you have a passport that is from the EU, from a member state, or from anywhere else from the world, it does not matter. Your nationality is not important. That is the good news. The only rule, you must be at the time of applying in a country outside of Europe. If you have been before in Europe, there is no minimum time that you must spend in the non-EU country. But think of the goal, the transfer of knowledge. It is preferable to have gained expertise outside Europe, which you can bring then to Europe. In case you are in doubt now, because I saw in the registrations that a number of you are maybe currently in Europe, there's also another fellowship which is quite similar. It's called Intra-European Fellowship. You could apply for that. Some of you might be eligible for both of these. I will talk today basically on the IIF, but I will give you the webpage where you can find information on the other fellowship also. Okay, so we've established now you're outside of the EU, you want to come to Europe. This is one thing. The next thing is you must comply with the so-called mobility rule. Researchers who apply for it must not have resided nor carried out their main activity in the country of their future host organization for more than 12 months in the 3 years immediately prior to the call deadline. If you want to come to Norway, you can do so in case you haven't been there already for more than a year in the past 3 years, right before the deadline. For example, if you have been there, want to go there, but you've been there for your vacation, this is not a problem. Any short stays will not be taken into account. So, the mobility rule is one rule. The other rule is to apply, you must either have the doctoral degree or at least 4 years of full-time research experience after obtaining the degree permitting you to embark on a doctorate. This mostly is the master's degree. In some countries, it could also be the bachelor's degrees. From this point on, where you had this degree, count for 4 years on that you must have worked full-time in research. Then you are also eligible. This is the minimum condition. If you have more experience, then that is better, because this is indeed a competitive fellowship. So the more you have on your plate, the better. Now, you usually do not carry out research just on your own. You have to find a host institution. Your application for the IIF should be made in liaison with an organization or institution that would be willing to host you here in Europe. Host organizations can be typically universities, but also research centers or companies. The most important thing is they carry out research, they are willing to host you, and they have the infrastructure for you and your research project. Our tip is search for this host institution early on. If you do not yet have something in mind, start today with searching for a host institution. Contact a potential supervisor with an abstract of your project. When you decide for a host institution, please bear in mind you'll work closely together with the people there, with the supervisor in particular, for 2 years. So make sure you get along with each other. It's very important that you find a host institution that matches your research profile. Do not only go for the high-level reputation. It's nice to be at a very high-level institute in Europe, but what's even more important is that it fits your research profile and your research project. Let's have a brief look at the timeline. This call for proposals for IIF is open since March 14th, and it will close on August 14th at 5 p.m. Brussels time. You cannot submit anything, any document, anything at all after this date, and neither can we or anybody else here. From September to October, the evaluation will take place, and you will get the first feedback, the first score, November, December 2013. You will not yet immediately know if your proposal will get funded or not, but you'll know at the beginning of January and February. In case your proposal was successful, you will be invited to the so-called negotiation phase. Do not let the name fool you. It's not really a negotiation where you could ask for more money. It's mainly an administrative process. In case everything goes fine, you can first start your project in March 2014. You can always also postpone the starting date of your project until March 2015. Now, you might wonder, I was talking about fellowships, what is in there? Money. Let's have a look at the financial side of such a fellowship. The financial support by the European Commission is provided for 12 to 24 months. We wrote here 12 to 24 months. You can apply also for a shorter period of time, up to 24 months. We always advise, however, to apply for the full 2 years duration. In case you are faster with your work, it's always easier to end a project before what you have foreseen, but you can never really make it longer. You will not get more money. The rates are specified by the European Commission. They are always multiplied with a country correction coefficient, depending on the standard of living in that country. If you are a researcher who has up to 10 years of experience in research, are again counted after the degree which formally allows you to embark on a doctorate, you will get a yearly living, a yearly living allowance of 58,500 euros. If you have more than that, more experience than that, you will also get a salary increase. We are talking about 87,500 euros per year. This will be topped up with a mobility allowance, depending on if you have family or not. If you're married, if you have children, it's either 700 or, with family support, 1,000 euros per month. Please take into account that most countries do tax the income. It is a salary that you get with an employment contract, so there's also taxation. Additionally to your salary, your host institution will receive 700 euro per researcher month as a contribution to their overheads, so that they can finance your desk and your lighting and the copying machine, and 800 euro per researcher month as a contribution to research expenses, so for example that they can get you the bacteria you will need for your research experiments. So all in all, I would say it is a good salary that you can get. If you apply, you can take this as a motivation. Let's now have a look if it's really worth for you to go through all the hassle and apply. These are what you can see now are the last year's success rates from 2007 on. You can see it was very successful at the beginning of the Framework Program 7 of the European Commission. The success rate did decrease a little bit over the years. We can say now in the last years it was around 14%. It always depends on how many people will submit this year for a proposal. It means do not get your hopes too high. This is a very competitive fellowship, but if you prepare well, then your chances are realistic that you will get the fellowship. In absolute numbers, in 2012, around 1,400 people submitted a proposal and around 190 got financed. So yes, it is competitive, but the fact that you're registered to this webinar and already now get the important information shows you're committed, you prepare well, it's absolutely realistic that you get it. Now, this is me talking, but what you will need is a lot of reading. So I'll now explain the basic documents that you need for preparing such a fellowship application. First of all, you will need the work program People 2013. People because People is the name of the overarching thematic sector of the Marie Curie actions that we're talking now. It gives you all the background information and again the goal of the IIF. Additionally, you will need the Guide for Applicants. This is the document that nobody can spare you to read. You will have to read it. It will give you all the details for your application. And both documents can be found on the Research Participant Portal. The Research Participant Portal is this website, and there you have on the left-hand side the purple field People. Click on this, and there you will get all the information, all the documents, any information of the European Commission for the IIF. Please beware, there's one part that is not yet available. It's the electronic facility for registering your proposal. It will soon be open. Let's have a look at the different parts of such a proposal. There is a part A of the proposal. This one deals with all the administrative issues, the contact information of the future host institution, of yourself, any contact data, the scientific panel you assign your proposal to, all that. I wrote in the presentation, please register now on this research participant portal and fill in all the forms. As I said, you cannot yet register, but we'll expect this facility to be open in the next couple of days. Do so early, register early on, because you will need some information from your host. It can take a couple of weeks sometimes to get some data. The earlier you familiarize yourself with the system, the better it is, because as I said, it will close on August 15th and 14th, and then you cannot add any information anymore. This is part A. Part B, this deals with the actual proposal part, where you really write your scientific research. Let's now have a look at this in detail. Some information. There are different evaluation criteria, and there is a whole outline of how you have to write this proposal. Please read this carefully, and you need to address all of the issues mentioned in the guide for applicants. Don't leave something out. Some criteria have a certain threshold. You can have 5 points as a maximum reach in one criteria. Sometimes there is a threshold of 3 or 4. All this is in the guide for applicants. But it means you have to write something for every criterion. You have to explain very well what's behind there. Each area is weighted. And here's the surprising thing. The science part, where you describe your research project, counts only for 25%. You might say it's a research proposal. Why is this not more important? There are other evaluation criteria who are considered being as equally important. We'll have a look at them. Please, when you prepare your proposal, do not forget everything that's around this science part. Let's have a look at the criteria. 8 pages. The dark blue part of this chart is for you to describe the science and technological quality of your proposal, so the actual research. 2 pages are for the transfer of knowledge, that is, the expertise that you already gained outside of Europe that you ideally can bring here to the European research area. On 7 pages, you can describe your expertise as researcher, the things that you did so far. On 6 pages, you are supposed to describe the implementation part of the project, what you will do, when you will do it, how you will carry out the research. The last 4 pages are for the impact. That means, how will the world change after you completed your research project? Let's now have a look at the weighting and at each individual criterion. The first one is the S&T quality. So on 8 pages, it counts for 25%. What have you to do? You have to describe the research and technological quality of your research project, including any interdisciplinary and or multidisciplinary aspects. You have to describe in as much detail as you can the appropriateness of the research methodology and its approach. You also have to state the originality and the innovative nature of your project, and this in relationship to the state of the art of the research in the field. You have to describe the timeliness and relevance of the project. Also, you will need to give some information on the host research expertise and the quality of the group, scientist in charge with whom you'll work. Do not leave out any of these. Even if, for example, you feel you do not really have very much interdisciplinarity. In some fields, I know this can be difficult, but if you have interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary aspects, put them well up front. These are important. Also give as many details as you can on the methodology. Evaluators can only judge upon what you give them. We realize this is your expertise. You are probably very well familiar with writing this type of grant. Now In order to make it easier, I tried to formulate some questions for your text while writing, or afterwards you can ask the text or ask someone else, listen, did I really do all this? The first one would be, do not forget to document any citations. After all, it is a scientific document. You cannot upload any annexes, so any references have to be within the page limit. Do not forget them. This is just a basic. The next one is, start writing and clearly state the goal of the whole project in the first paragraph. This is to captivate the evaluators. They read a lot of text, and you clearly should state the goal, what you have in mind, right in the first few sentences. Regarding the host institution, you are already in touch with them, so ask yourself and explain it to evaluators, why is this the best host for your project? Also, go into detail, why did you choose exactly this research group and this supervisor? Describe in an extra chapter multi- and interdisciplinarity. If you have any graphics, this would be really nice. Graphics, figures, tables can illustrate your text very well, particularly in this research part. Also, describe in an extra chapter or subchapter the state of the art and the progress beyond the state of the art. And last but not least, really put into 1 or 2 clear sentences, why is this project now so important? So much for this first evaluation criteria. Let's have a look at the second, the so-called transfer of knowledge. What the European Commission wants you to describe here is the clarity and quality of the transfer of knowledge objectives, what do you have in mind, and the potential of transferring knowledge to the European host and to Europe in general. This criterion weighs 15%. Some questions that you can ask. Do you clearly mention which knowledge you will bring to the host institution? While choosing a host institution, you can already have a look. What is it that they can offer you, but moreover, what it is that you can offer to them? Mention very clearly how you will transfer your knowledge. In which form? Will you be giving lectures? Will you be in constant exchange with your peers? What is it that you have in mind? Also, do you clearly mention why it is so important to transfer your particular kind of expertise and knowledge to the European research area? All this, put it in words as simple as possible, clarify it for the evaluators. This is the second criterion. Let's have a look at the third. This is the researcher part. On 7 pages, you can describe what you did so far. It weighs equally as the scientific part, so for 25%. You have to describe your research experience with any results you already achieved, patents, publications, teaching, anything else. You have to describe and show your independent thinking and leadership qualities and the capacity to transfer the knowledge. Also, here it's the right place to show the match between the fellow's profile and the project. In this part, make sure that anybody who reads it does get a good impression of the researcher's achievements at the very first sight. Structure this whole chapter very well. Make sure the achievements are clearly stated. Work with lists, work with a CV. Show what you have, show what you did so far. Give examples for your independent thinking, your leadership qualities. What have you done so far? How can you show that you will be able to carry out this research project? And the last thing I would like to mention is, do you clearly show why you and your project match? Why are you the right person to carry out this particular research project? There is no minimum numbers of publications, for example, that you have to have in order to be eligible. The more you have, the better, but it always depends on your research area. In some research disciplines, it would be expected to have 3 years after the PhD at least 10 trend publications. In others, it's completely different. It always depends on your research field and on the overall impression, what you did so far. Let's have a look at the fourth evaluation criteria, the implementation. This counts again for 15%. Here, please describe the quality of the infrastructure and facilities you will use, and also the international collaborations of the host. Make sure you describe adequately any practical arrangements for the implementation and the management of your research project. You have to show, ideally in a work plan, the feasibility and credibility of the project, and also any practical and administrative arrangements, and also support for the hosting of the fellow. What evaluators want to read here, they want to make sure once they give you the money and you arrive at the European host institution, you can start and go through with your project. You do not need to have spent time anymore with finding a place or so. You can just go there, appear on the first day, and start working. When you write, you can ask yourself the following questions. Do you have a really nicely layouted work plan? Also, a Gantt chart can be really helpful. We have an example on the next slide. This work plan can also be the core when you figure out the whole research project. You can start with this, and then everything else will fall into place. Please state the international projects your future host institution is involved. Name the people, give details. State why these collaborations will be useful for your project. How can you benefit from these? In case you have risks, there will be risks. Research is always risky. Assess potential risks and, if needed, add a buffer time. What do you do when something goes wrong? Is there a plan B? There is a website I will later on mention once again. It's called EURACCESS. Make a reference to this because this is the website where you will find practical help for moving researchers on the move. For every country there's information there on visa, on working permits, how to find housing. Familiarize yourself already with this. You will find all the information there and show in the proposal, I have the knowledge, I know what to do in case I get financed. Add milestones for your project. Really show, okay, when I'm there, I can embark on the next step. Describe what will you really need in order to carry out your research project. In case you work in a lab, will you have really access to the lab, to the machines, to the library? If you will work on a new machine, on a new equipment, do you need a special course? If so, is there somebody who will give you this special course? Make all these things clear before you start. And again, a policy document, a reference to charter and code should be made. I will explain later what this is. You will find this document also on the EURACCESS site. This is an example for a work plan. I anonymized it a little bit, but it's an actual real work plan of a fellow who has a similar fellowship. You can also have a different layout. What is important for the evaluators to see is that you know which step follows which step and that you really thought your whole project through. This is the fourth evaluation criteria. Now, for the last one, it's the impact evaluation criteria, and traditionally we know people have a hard time writing this. It is complicated. It does weigh for 20%, so make sure you spend some time on this. You have to describe the potential for creating long-term collaborations and mutual beneficial cooperation between Europe and the other third country, meaning the country where you are now. You also have to show the contribution to European excellence and European competitiveness through the valuable transfer of knowledge. And you have to show the impact of the proposed outreach activities. So what do people want to read here? They want to know what you will have achieved after the project. What is the impact on the European research area, and how far can we in Europe benefit from the expertise you have? Show clearly how you will continue to collaborate with the future host institution. And please give details on your outreach activities. In case you do not know what that is, it's the dissemination of your research results, but not to your peers, to the other people in your scientific community, but to the wide general public. Outreach activities can, for example, be that you would go to a school for one day and you explain to children what you're doing and why this is important. Or it could be a blog where you regularly present your research, but in a way that is understandable for the general public. Do not forget this. This is really important. Evaluators are briefed to have a look at it, so make sure your outreach activities are original, matched to your project. I did not mention it in the presentation, but I would like to say it now. Also think of open access publishing. This will be also become more and more important. So, I mentioned beforehand the Charter and Code of Conduct. These are policy documents made by the European Commission in order to make sure that host institutions offer decent employment conditions for researchers. Usually, most European host institutions are already in line with Charter and Code. But check out this brochure, make sure your host institution is also familiar with it, and mention that you did this in the proposal. And again, the website of the Euraccess Service Centers. Euraccess Service Centers are financed by the European Commission. This is a website and help desks specifically designed to deal with researchers who are on the move. Again, working permits, how to find housing in each country, what to do if your spouse needs also a working permit or a visa. All this is information you can get beforehand. Show that you are familiar with all this already in the proposal. Some additional information now that we have treated all the evaluation criteria. You will have the possibility of adding up to 3 so-called referees assessments to this proposal. These are essentially letters of recommendation. You can ask someone who knows how you work, but not your future supervisor, but it could be, for example, your PhD supervisor. When you register on the electronic proposal submission service, you have a possibility to add their email addresses. They will then be contacted by the European Commission and they will be sent a form that they have to fill out. Ask your potential referees timely for their opinion. This has to be made now because it might take some time until they have the time to fill in the forms. You cannot do this after the deadline. And if you have all 3 of these assessments or up to 3, it's really a nice plus. If you do not have it, don't worry, it's not a must. You're still eligible to apply. Nevertheless, it would be, of course, nice if you would find 2 or 3 people who can say, yes, this is a great researcher, and we fully support that he or she can carry out this project. Some additional tips and tricks. So, as I mentioned before, please read the guide for applicants and follow its exact structure. You can always add sub-chapters to what I've already explained, but do never leave one chapter out. If you leave out one chapter, you're almost sure that you will not get the fellowship. Take your time, go through your proposal and spoon feed the readers, the evaluators, with the information. It is your task to make your text comprehensible and not their task to search for the information that might be somewhere hidden in there. Evaluators are researchers in the field. They have a lot to do. They do the evaluation on top of their daily work. It's a very good and transparent evaluation process, but these people are under a lot of time pressure. They take their work seriously, but make sure you make it as easy as possible. Stay within any page limits that are given. This is very important. If you feel you want to add more, you can do so, but evaluators are briefed to disregard any information on additional pages. So our advice is stay within the page limits and give as many details as you can possibly give on the few pages that you have. As I said before, evaluators can only ever judge upon the information you give them. They will not have the time to check out additional web pages. They will not be able to check on your publications, for example. They will read the proposal and judge on this. When you write your proposal, don't forget to mention any single achievement. They might seem natural to you, but you have to put them down. For example, that you earned an award or that you participated in grad school. Document it. It's not enough to say, I have participated in many international projects, say which ones and what you did. Make sure your proposal is understandable for the experts as well as for generalists. That means evaluators are researchers from the field, but you cannot be sure that they will be in your exact research area. This you have to keep in mind. Also, they might not be from your country, so also take into account any abbreviations or non-English terms. Make it easy to read it. You do not have to worry if your English is not pitch perfect. Evaluators come from all over the world. Their English might not be pitch perfect either, but it has to be understandable. And make it fun to read your proposal. Work with little appetizers, with subtitles, with paragraphs, with graphics. Write short sentences, work with keywords, use paragraph structure, the page as well, highlight important parts, and again, work with tables and graphics. You can put a lot of information into nice tables and graphics. But make sure they are readable in black and white, because sometimes evaluators would print out everything and they cannot maybe read it if you have something only in red and black. An example for a table, here you can see, it works with main objectives, with indicators. We also put a non-objective there, just to make it very clear. If you say, my objective is saving the world from climate change, that is very noble, but of course, this is not how really decent research objectives look like. So make little bits, make it operational. Examples for graphics. You are more familiar with this than I would be, but make sure you make the text also nice to look at, and again, you can put a lot of information in graphics. So, this has been a lot of information on the International Incoming Fellowship, and maybe you now say, I'm not eligible for it, or I will not find the time for it. Let's briefly have a look at another funding source, the so-called Career Integration Grant. This is also a stipend designed by the European Commission to help researchers establish their career in Europe. It would give 25,000 euro per year for 2 to 4 years. It's a flat rate. You can hire someone, you can buy books from this money, it's up to you. Again, it is for experienced researchers. The mobility rule I explained applies again. What is mandatory here, you have to have a 100% working contract at a European host institution for at least the time of the duration of the Career Integration Grant. This call is open right now also. The deadline is on September 18th. You can submit always. In case this is not what you're really looking for either, and the IIF is also not really what you want, again, check out the Euraxis website, because there is a very nice job motor. You will find many, many job vacancies and fellowship programs all over Europe. You can search for country, for your research area. This is really well working, and maybe you will find your luck there. Now, some useful information. We have here a list of websites where you will find a lot of information on the fellowships, on possibilities to go to Europe, detailed information of the European Commission and of our project. Anything regarding fellowship programs in Europe, you will be able to find here. Now, what is left for me to say is, of course, to wish you really a lot of luck with your application. If you need further help, please contact the national contact point for the Marie Curie program of your future European host institution, or check if there is a national contact point in your country. You can find the list of contacts in the link given below. As I said, we will send you the presentation. And I will now hand over the microphone to Yevgeny, a fellow who will talk to you about his experience with the International Incoming Fellowship. At the end of Yevgeny's talk, we will answer all your questions. Thank you very much.
Hello, Julianne. Thanks a lot for inviting me to share my experience. And thanks a lot for joining us, guys, from all these diverse places around the world. Francesco, maybe you can start my slides now. Yeah, thank you. So Juliana asked me to share some experiences I had while applying in executing Marie Curie International Incoming Fellowship. So here's an outline of my talk today. I will give you a brief personal background to kind of describe the situation I was at when I decided to apply for the fellowship. And then I will try to convince you why you should apply for the International Incoming Fellowship. And finally, I will also follow Julianne's lead and give you some practical advice on how to prepare your application. So throughout my presentation, I will use this little timeline to guide you through the events, sequence of events in my recent history. So my International Incoming Fellowship started 1 year ago exactly on March of 2012, and about half a year before that, I graduated with my PhD from Washington University in St. Louis in Missouri of United States. And my story with International Incoming Fellowship began half a year before that on, or rather, yes, half a year before that on January 2011 when I was still working on my PhD. And just to give you a little background, I was studying the kinetics of catalytic reactions. For those of you who are not familiar with this area, it's a very important field for developing sustainable chemical processes, as well as environmental technologies such as catalytic converters, which you can find in your cars. So except doing my research, I was also stressing out and worrying about my future, as many of you may worry today. And of course, I asked myself a lot of questions at this time. For example, should I follow the academic path in my career or industrial? Should I stay in the US or try to establish my career somewhere else? You can also diversify after completing your PhD and switch fields. Or you can remain in the same field. And finally, who will pay for your further research? So there are lots of questions there to answer, and many of them seem very stressful. And at this point, it's really strategically important to choose a proper postdoc position if you decide to follow the academic path, because as you may know, the job market is really increasingly competitive. So it's a really important decision, and you really have to consider the best opportunities that are out there. And I think, personally think that Marie Curie Fellowships is one of the really unique chances to reach your dream career and build your life. So at this point, my advisor suggested that I should write an IAF grant with our European collaborator. Specifically, it was the Laboratory for Chemical Technology here at Ghent University. Why this host was an attractive partner for this fellowship? Most of all, because it's a leading team in the field of chemical reaction engineering, and they really have a lot of expertise to offer to me, including ab initio calculations, kinetic CFD modeling, if it makes any sense for you. So in August of 2011, we have submitted a proposal for Marie Curie Fellowship, and the proposal is titled Intrinsic Catalytic Kinetics Analyzed and Reconciled with Industrial Conditions, or shortly ICARUS. And the specific goal of this proposal is to study propane dehydrogenation over some novel bimetallic catalysts, basically using the methodology I developed during my PhD work. So luckily our proposal was successful, and right now I'm 1 year into the project. I had an excellent reception and support both by the host and by the managers of the Marie Curie Fellowship. I had a very effective paperwork despite being in Belgium, which is known for bureaucratic, a very complicated bureaucratic process. And finally, the money flow is very steady and effective. I already produced several journal manuscripts. And hopefully we'll produce several more in high impact journals before the end of the fellowship. So how can this experience influence your choice of your career? First of all, Marie Curie Fellowship is a great opportunity to work on the world-class scientific project. Basically, it puts you on the very edge of your field, gives you very valuable training in novel techniques, which you might not be able to get anywhere else. And hopefully it will result in several significant publications. So you really have a chance to make an impact on your field. It's very important to gain new skills, of course, for your future career, and international incoming fellowship is a perfect opportunity to do so, because it allows you to move between countries and teams. You will be able to assess the scientific field, how it is structured in different countries. You will definitely learn how to plan and manage a scientific project, which is probably the most important skill for a successful scientist. Finally, it will give you opportunity to write a good grant, which is a very important skill in itself. And I do wish you the best of luck in writing and applying for this fellowship. But even if you don't get the grant, the very experience of writing and applying and learning how to organize your thought process is a very valuable opportunity. Of course, there will be a lot of networking. You will develop international collaborations and you will meet a lot of people. And people is really what this program is all about. And what is academia is all about. It's constantly exchanging ideas and skills. Finally, last but not least, this fellowship is indeed a very prestigious fellowship, and it definitely opens new doors for you in the future and provides you with a generous funding for a few years of your research. So finally, I want to share several practical advices. Juliana already touched upon many of them, but hopefully we will not overlap too much. So first of all, I would advise you to start planning and writing as soon as possible. Personally, I started about half a year before submission. It is possible to complete the application in a shorter amount of time, but do start right away. Organize your time and resources. Spend a little bit of a time every day. It's impossible to sit down and write it non-stop within several weeks. So I would advise you to work on it piece by piece, every day or almost every day. Make a very clear schedule for yourself and stick to it. Basically, try to plan writing a chapter in some fixed period of time. Leave plenty of time in the end for revisions and corrections, because they consume a lot of time. Aim high. Only transformative proposals get funded. As we mentioned, this is a very competitive fellowship. So try to identify a very important and relevant problem and catch up with the latest research. Do some literature search in advance. Ideally, it should integrate your expertise and the host's expertise. Of course, both of you, host and yourself, will learn a lot of new things, but it also should be a perfect relationship between the host and the applicant. So try to find some common points where you can increase the strength of yourself. Be very specific about what you're suggesting. General sentences and general suggestions will not benefit the application. Be very specific. The plan should be comprehensive, but in the same time realistic. Do not overstretch yourself. Remember that international fellowship is more than just a scientific proposal. The Commission really looked into providing young researchers with new opportunities in Europe. And this is not purely scientific cause. Pay attention to each sections. For example, transfer of knowledge or outreach activities. They are as important. It's as important to write a good outreach section, for example, than to write a good scientific section of the proposal. And try to distribute information between different sections. This would be very wise to spoon feed indeed the information to the reviewers, and you can do it in the variety of inventive ways. For example, here we are looking at the typical table of contents suggested for the proposal, and as you can see, the scientific part is mostly concentrated in section B1. However, if you run out of space in section B1 and you still have some scientific ideas or objectives to deliver, you can work on it and try to incorporate them, of course, properly adjusted into other sections. For example, you can include it in the transfer of knowledge, you can include it into the implementation part, and certainly you can stress the importance of your scientific work as part of the general impact of the proposal. Plan good collaborations. It's a must. Look into other international teams of researchers you will be trying to work with. You should remember that in case you will get this proposal, people will actually want to work with you because it's a very prestigious thing. So try to find really known and respected collaborators in the field. Make very effective figures. They should be informative, but in the same time compact. Basically, if you illustrate some of the concepts from your scientific part, you can deliver this information much more effectively, and you can save up space in the text by putting a lot of information on your graphs in a very succinct way. Try to make them visually appealing. Definitely go beyond Excel graphics. Another important thing is high quality of writing and editing. Explain your ideas to the general scientific public, not to an expert in your field or in your subfield rather. Julian mentioned that the reviewers are experts in their field. However, the text should be understandable for a general literate person, because you never know where this proposal, which desk it's going to be at some point. So it's very important to make it understandable for a general public. Sentences should be clear and simple, but not too simple. If you have an access to a technical writing specialist at your home institution right now, this is the time to use it. And even more importantly, you should seek out and find some native English speaker, if you're not native English speaker yourself, and have him or her edit your manuscript. Although some inconsistencies in the language are definitely forgivable, in general, the better your quality of writing will be, the more chances the proposal will have being funded. Communicate well with the host as early as possible. Figure out exactly what they expect from this project, and try to use this process of writing the proposal as a professional networking. Start building your relationship with your future host. And there will be some sections of the proposal which intended for the host to write. Let them present themselves. They probably wrote similar proposals before and they know how to do it effectively. It will also give you an opportunity to collaborate on something and build up the trust and collaborative environment. know exactly what the funding agency wants, the funding agency in this case being European Commission. So carefully read those guides and address each point. Try to find good examples of previously submitted proposals. This might not be easy, and generally people tend not to give you their proposals very easily, but whether the proposal you will read is successful or not, it will give you some idea of what is expected. Read and reference diverse sources. There's plenty of literature out there in the open access, such as European white papers, Commission reports, research roadmaps, etc. This will definitely help you to understand their criteria and what they mean by European excellence and European competitiveness. Finally, definitely keep in touch with the national contact point and try to use their help for formatting and for applying. So I hope this was helpful. I hope I convinced you that this is really a unique chance which you definitely should use. I would like to thank Marie Curie Actions for providing support for me for the past year. I would like to thank the staff here at the Laboratory of Chemical Technology I work for and at the Ghent University for making this experience very enjoyable and meaningful. And finally, I would like to thank Julian for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to talk about the fellowship and about my research. So with that, I will conclude, and I will be happy to answer any of your questions after the presentation. Also, feel free to contact me for any additional information or for less formal questions. I will be happy to answer them. So thanks a lot, and I think I will turn it back to Julian, and we will have a question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evgeny. This was really very, very helpful. It was a pleasure listening to you. And it's also always very nice to hear how happy a fellow is with the Marie Curie Fellowship. We received a question in the meantime regarding the fact of, are there any statistics for applications? How many are submitted? How many are accepted? In one of my slides, I mentioned the success rate. I did not put down in absolute numbers what that meant. For the year 2011, there were more than 1,300 submitted proposals for IIF, out of which 200 were financed. In the year 2012, more than 1,400 proposals were submitted for the IIF, out of which 190 were financed. On the blog, International Cooperation for Research, for which we gave you the link on one of our last slides, you will find the cut-off thresholds for the last year's calls. That means how many points you needed out of 100 to be financed. Usually for the IIF, as I said, it's very competitive. Depending on the panel, for example, life sciences or social sciences, out of 100 points, you would need typically 90 to 93 to even 94 to be financed. So you have to aim high. You have to realize this is competitive, but do not worry. In case you do not get the fellowship this year, you can always reapply the next year. There will be a new framework program, not FP7 anymore, but Horizon 2020. Essentially, it means again there is research money out there for you to come to Europe. We do not yet know the exact specifications, but I can guarantee already you now it will be very similar. So even if you shouldn't get the grant this year, it's always possible to resubmit next year. Again, for the statistics, please check out the blog International Cooperation for Research. You will have the link on one of the last slides, and there is more information on the statistics. There is another question. If the fellowships are for postdocs with 4 years or more of doing research, yes. So you have to have at least 4 years of research or your PhD. You have to have the research experience of more than 4 years after you gained the degree, which formally allowed you to embark on a doctorate. So if you obtained your master's degree and then you were full-time, all the time in research for at least 4 years, you can apply. It is better, however, as this is so competitive, to have more experience, but it's not excluded that you will not get the fellowship in case you have just the 4 years and not so much more. It always depends on the overall quality of your project. I received a third question. If somebody is eligible, if this person, I just have to read and understand the question. Stay with me for a minute, sorry, here, just a second. Okay, so the question, I will read it for you. Is somebody working at the European Commission in a third country eligible if she plans or he plans to be based in Europe, as long as you comply with a mobility rule? That means you haven't been here in your country of your future host institution already for more than 12 months in the past 3 years. And as long as you do have either the PhD or the 4 years of research experience, you're absolutely eligible. If you did something in between in your life, you stepped out of research after a certain while, this doesn't matter. What is important is that you have some specific scientific research skills and expertise that you can bring to the European research area. Now there is another question. Yes, a very good one. If you can apply for the Career Integration Grant, the CIG, and the IIF in parallel, it's very easy. You can always apply for both, but in case you get both, this can happen, you have to decide for one. It is up to you and upon your employment situation for which one you would go then. You can do so. Do not make the mistake, however, to simply copy and paste. The Career Integration Grant is structured similarly as the IIF. However, there is a particular guide for applicants for the Career Integration Grant, and you have to follow the exact outline that is given there. But it is similar. You can apply for both. In case you should be assigned both, you have to choose one. Okay. I have a question for Yevgeny now. Evgeny, how were you informed? How did you get to know the IIF? And how do you think can you as researchers be informed?
Yes, thank you, Julian. And thank you, Lynn, for the question. Personally, I learned about this fellowship, as I mentioned in my presentation, from our European collaborator. And in general, when it comes to learning about funding opportunities, I think there are two very important points to address. First of all, you definitely have to be proactive. You have to have initiative. You have to seek out for those opportunities, which sometimes mean a simple Googling, as we all know, of funding opportunities for researchers. And other times, you should definitely pay attention to funding and career sections of popular scientific journals. For example, both Nature and Science have a regular columns about new funding opportunities, about new programs initiated by different institutions and countries. So if you are a young researcher, you should definitely pay attention to all of those. And then the second point is networking, talking to people. At any gathering of the scientific community, such as conferences, seminars, workshops, or simply faculty meetings at your institution, you should talk to people and ask them about different opportunities. Chances are those researchers are funded from some sources which are still available for young researchers. For example, if you have some collaboration with a European partner or other institution in different country, ask them what kind of funding they usually apply for. They would probably give you a very good advice. In general, just to name a few sources, in the Europe, there is a European Research Executive Agency, which has multiple links on their website to different funding opportunities. On the other side of Atlantics, of course, it's institutions like NSF, DOE, NIH, etc. There are, as far as I know, opportunities funded by those institutions for researchers working currently in the United States to go and work on some research programs abroad. So you should consult those. Finally, just to make it slightly less serious and more funny, occasionally there are very eccentric millionaires which fund research. On my experience, in fact, I saw at least a couple of proposal calls where a rich person with some noble goals will try to fund your research. This is just to be comprehensive. Of course, your primary source is websites of big institutions such as NSF or European Research Executive Agency. I hope that answered your question. If you have further questions, I would be happy to send you a few links if you email me after the seminar.
Thank you very much, Evgeny, for your answer. Now we have two additional questions. One is if you can apply if you're right now at a Dominican Republic university. Yes, this is not a problem. As long as you comply with the mobility rule and as long as you have enough research experience or the PhD, you're absolutely eligible. In case you are not sure if you are really eligible, you can either always contact the national contact point of the host country where you intend to go to, or check if there is maybe even a national contact point in your country, or there's also a help desk of the European Commission, and they can help you figure out if you're eligible or not. We have another question. How many papers or publications does one need to apply for the IIF? There is no minimum number of applications, of papers that you need to have published. However, it is quite a competitive funding scheme. We've heard it several times now. So it depends on your overall quality of the research project that you propose and what you have done so far. The European Commission intends to attract top-class researchers. So if you're in doubt, you can always try it, and then you will get a feedback in any case. And sometimes this feedback might be the applicant does not yet seem to have the potential maturity or something along the lines. This is not to discourage you. You can always work on your publications, do your research, and then reapply the next year. Also, in case you feel maybe this is not yet enough, you can show off with the other things that you did. Maybe you did a lot of teaching. This is a good skill. Maybe you spoke at many conferences. Also important. Put everything on the plate that you have to offer. And then we will not lie to you. You will also need a little bit of luck. But at least you have to try it, because then you will know if it works out or not. We have another question. I will pass it on to my colleague. Stay with me for a second, just a second. We are waiting for the question. And by the way, it's really great that so many of you are listening still attentively. We are really very happy, and we do hope all this helps you. And of course, in case we did not yet say it before, you're welcome to contact us. There is the next question arriving. If the papers, the publications, do have to be indexed on national publications, and if they are also valuable, okay. So Evgeny was mentioning in particular also international reviews and papers. It always depends on your research area, and it always depends also on the rest of what you have done. Of course, any publication is valuable. If you have one major publication in your field, which has maybe a high citation index, but you do not have many, that can be great. If you have many smaller publications, maybe in a national paper that might not be that known, you should indeed mention it. The evaluators will be able to have a look at it and say, okay, this is very good for this stage of career phase that the applicant is in his or her field. Put everything out there. In case you have many, many, many publications, then of course mention the newest ones first. The next question. The concept of research. If research is being done in several ways in different countries, are there any EU standards? Not to my knowledge, no. The concept of research, this is rather a philosophical question. In the end, it does come down to, is this research important? Does it bring progress beyond the state of the art? And if possible, together with the policy papers that Evgeny mentioned, for example, research infrastructures roadmaps or industrial surveys or anything that is mentioned in policy papers, and being noted having an added value for the European research area. That is very, very nice. But in general, we're talking about research. I guess it's the same all over the world. So don't be shy. Put on the plate there what you do have. So it is time for us now to close this webinar. It was really a pleasure having you with us. I hope this was helpful. Again, thank you so much for Evgeny. Thank you, Veronique. Thank you, our IT support, Francesco. We look forward to hopefully welcoming you in Europe next year. If it doesn't work out, don't be desperate. Try it again, and we really hope that this webinar was helpful for you. Goodbye, and hope to see you next year here.
Thank you very much again, everybody, for joining us and for listening. And hopefully you will disseminate the information you received today. Tell about it to your colleagues and friends. And once again, feel free to email us and ask additional questions. Thanks a lot. Bye.